Memories of Cab 804 Part 2 is the 12th episode of the first season of Taxi. This is, of course, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. To be honest, there's not a lot to say. I liked bits of it, but in general, my suspicion was correct. With the previous episode, which I won't talk about in any detail, but with the previous episode, I really thought it didn't need to be two parts. There was some slowness in the previous episode, and I thought they maybe could have quickened that up a little bit by taking some of the fluff out and then taking some elements from part 2. I did say maybe part 2 will be full of amazing moments, and that's why it needed to be two parts. Honestly, I liked maybe 5 minutes of this episode at the most. It really isn't great, and a good half of it I actually found tremendously boring. It starts off with Latka working on the car. Hopefully he will be able to restore it. And then we have two flashbacks, two memories of Cab 804. And one of them involves Elaine and Tom Selleck, which was pretty great. He plays a character called Mike Beldon, and he ends up sitting in the front of the cab. It's quite a long journey. He ends up sitting in the front, and there's a lot of flirting going on between him and Elaine. And to begin with, it was okay. I like Tom Selleck, so that was kind of cool. But then it just went on and on and on. And it managed to save itself, this particular story, with Louie, his voice on the radio as he'd been listening in to their very flirtatious conversation. That was pretty funny. So we could have got there a little bit quicker. It didn't need to go on for so long. But Louie definitely was brilliant in that moment. And I really liked Elaine's reaction. The second story is one of the most boring things that I have ever seen. When I explain what it's about, that might make me sound really cold, but it's not funny. Alex is in the car, and we get a tiny amount of comedy where a passenger comes in and he says, "We're having a baby, we need to go to the hospital." And then he realises he forgot his wife. His wife or partner was a good few steps behind him, and she gets in the car and they end up delivering the baby in the taxi, and Alex is part of this, and it's not funny. There's no comedy. It's not interesting. Maybe it's a little sweet, and Alex seemed to be quite happy that he could be part of this moment of bringing this baby into the world. He seemed to be quite happy about that, but I didn't enjoy it, and it went on for such a long time. And I feel like, in my opinion, if other people like it, that's fair enough, but for me, we could have completely taken that out. It wasn't interesting. Really condensed Elaine's story with Tom Selleck or Mike Beldon, and we could have put that in the previous episode if we removed the fluff from the previous episode. And honestly, that might have been a perfect episode because everything would have just been golden and the pacing would have been amazing. We end this episode with Latka restoring the cab, kind of. There are some problems with it. Alex gets behind the wheel, and, well, the car doesn't work properly, let's put it that way, and that's how we end things. So, it's not a good episode. I'd say, well, as I said, I enjoyed maybe five minutes of it. We absolutely didn't need this to be two parts, and the pacing in the previous episode wasn't great, so we could have easily made this a one-part episode. Maybe they were short of ideas, I don't know. But personally, I didn't think Memories of Cab 804 Part 2 was particularly good. The previous part was better, but still not perfect. But if we mash them together, there's enough quality in there to give us a 25-ish minute episode that would have been, honestly, pretty perfect. So, unfortunately, on its own, not very good, but there are definitely some good moments in this episode.